when I wanted to put my flat on the market, I had 3 or 4 local estate agents come in, and most of them came in with brochures and information about sales that had happened in the local area, but they seemed very keen to show me their brochures, and they also they were quite fixed on the price that my flat would go, and they compared it to the other flats in the block and the other flats in the area, most of which were ex-rentals. Now mine was owner-occupied, and it did make a difference because an ex-rental, has a certain quality, and owner-occupied has, if I may say so, a slightly more cared-for quality. And with Martin Gerrard, they knew, the other flats in the area. They knew the other flats in the block. Craig knew, he'd sold the flat below me for a very good price a couple of years ago, but he didn't come with a brochure. He just came with his own knowledge of the area, but he also looked at my flat and looked at it properly and looked at how it would present itself and how it would sell, and took into account things like the garden, the size of the garden, the access to the loft, all of those other things that made a difference to the price. But the others had just gone straight for, this is what they've gone for in the past, this is what yours is going to go for, that's the end of it. Whereas, with Craig, I felt that he did, he based his pricing and his attitude on knowledge, but he also took into account the individual circumstances and the individual, the way the flat has been looked after. That's why I went with them. The communication between myself and Martin Gerrard was absolutely brilliant. It was really good. If I emailed or texted, I would get answers almost straight away. If I phoned, I could there was a dedicated phone number I could speak to Fatmir on. Otherwise, if Fatmir wasn't there, Craig was available, and he knew, he was up to date with everything that Fatmir was doing. So the communication between them was very good. So that if I felt really supported by that. And also, compared to the estate agents at the other end, it was a nightmare trying to get hold of them. I would leave multiple phone calls. And with the solicitors, I would leave multiple phone calls unanswered for solicitors, because moving is very stressful, and you need someone who really can support you emotionally through this. Fatmir was brilliant because he was very friendly, but very, very professional. He understood what was going on. He was really professional insofar as he gave me good advice, not only about my sale, but about what was ahead of me, on the other side when I was on my purchase as well, and what I was, going to expect at any stage, and what I could do. He gave me advice as, what should be happening at this stage, so that I could go back to the solicitors or the other estate agents and say, well, I feel that this should be happening, and I could say that with confidence. Whereas, if I haven't bought or sold the last time I bought was 10 years ago. And things have changed a lot since then. So it just felt good to have somebody with that knowledge, with that expertise, and with the time to give me, to support me, really. Trust was really important because you always feel that people are going to take advantage of you, or possibly, I don't know, people of my age feel that, we're not very sure about things in the current climate. So feeling that you could trust somebody was really important for me, and I did feel immediately that I could trust Fatmir because he was there giving me really quite good local information about what was going on in the area. He was really empathetic. He understood what what I was going through. So if I phoned him in a panic, he would say, "Yes, Sherry, I understand that. I understand what you're going through. We could do this or this." He gave me options of what to do in certain circumstances. He was also, during part of it, I was really ill, so he gave me advice on Albanian honey, as a remedy. Just silly things like that. But it's like personal things, but and empathy and a personal relationship with your estate agent. But nothing that but keeping it completely professional at all times as well. So it was really good. I needed to move because of personal circumstances, and I felt that. I felt that Fatmir and Martin Gerard, took into account my personal circumstances. It was, for family reasons I'm moving, and it was sort of quite an urgent move. I had to move before September, so I did feel that they had, They were able to understand my personal needs, and they were able to, really communicate with me on a personal level. The local knowledge that Martin Gerard has accrued over the years is really useful for a seller, because Craig knew everything about the area. The other estate agents I saw came with, great booklets full of photographs and things. Craig just had it all in his head. He knew exactly what was going on in the area. He could tell me stories about the area. He also helped me actually with getting my lease extended, because he knew the surveyor who was working. So they seem to know everybody. Fatmir as well. He knows the area. He's he could tell me stories about sales and purchases in the area and what had happened to them, and it was really useful because I felt that they were able to advise me on how my sale would go best with their local knowledge. There were hiccups along the way. There was a situation in which somebody made me an offer I accepted, and then 5 minutes later they went back on their offer for no particular reason. And that was when I had already had an offer accepted on the place that I was going to buy. So there was immediate panic. But Fatmir, had contacts. He had a load of contacts, and he had other buyers lined up ready to step in, and so somebody else did step in and made an offer that I accepted. My sale was much simpler because Martin Gerard was dealing with it, I feel, than my purchase. My purchase was much more complicated. There was lots more that had to be sorted out at that end. And I felt that the estate agents, where I was buying, were less available on the phone, less prompt to answer questions, and it was really much more difficult to get in touch with them than it was to get in touch with Fatmir, who, answered quickly, always had a good response, a good reasoned and professional response to everything that I needed answers to. I think Martin Gerard are very good value for money because of the amount of work that they do to push the sale through, to support the seller, and also to support. They supported me in my purchase as well, which was, they weren't just there for the sale. They were there to help me on my way, going forward. I think there's a lot of things that can go wrong. Lots, I was in a small chain, and lots of things could have gone wrong in that chain. And my respect for estate agents has gone up, immeasurably after working with Martin Gerard, and particularly after working with Fatmir, because the amount of work he had to put in to keep this little chain going. He knew everything that was going on in the whole chain, and he would let me know so that I could push, the right people in the right direction. So, he worked incredibly hard, for the whole process to go through, and hats off to him, really. I did feel that they went, that Martin Gerard and particularly Fatmir went above and beyond because of their whole attitude. Their attitude was one of positive support for the seller and positive support also for the buyer, but also a very professional attitude, and also just knowing the whole process from the beginning to the end, being aware that my little chain needed to continue as a little chain and to come to completion, and being able to give me information, from both ends of the chain was really, good. And also Fatmir was very personable, very friendly, very just very personable, and sympathetic, and had lots of empathy. So that's, I would recommend Martin Gerard to, anyone who wants to sell or buy in North London. Well, the reason I'm giving this testimony, even though I'm going to complete tomorrow and I'm really busy packing today, is because I feel that Martin Gerard, and particularly Fatmir, needs some kind of extra reward for all of the effort or all the work and all the time that they've put in helping me sell my property and move to a new place. I would recommend Martin Gerard highly I already have recommended Martin Gerard to everybody I know who lives in North London, because I think they are they're the most trustworthy and the ones that you can really put your faith in. And moving house, selling and buying is a really, really stressful thing to do, and I think Martin Gerard handled the whole emotional roller coaster of it, with their I think, they must have been trained in psychology, because they are absolutely brilliant at handling people who are under a lot of strain.